Picture this: a winding mountain road, the sun setting over distant peaks, and a gleaming motor coach making its way through the stunning landscape. Inside, 23 passengers from different walks of life are experiencing the third day of what's been advertised as America's most scenic tour. Among them sits Ethan Parker, a 28-year-old librarian who saved for months to take this trip, hoping it might pull him out of his comfortable but predictable routine. Ethan is the kind of person who plans everything meticulously, who reads travel guides cover to cover, and who always follows the rules. He's chosen a window seat near the middle of the bus, where he can take photographs without drawing too much attention to himself. And then there's Jake Donovan, the tour guide whose easy smile and confident demeanor have already made him popular with the group. At 32, Jake has been leading tours for 5 years, and there's something about his relaxed expertise that makes everyone feel both safe and excited about the adventure ahead. Jake has noticed Ethan, the quiet guy who asks thoughtful questions about local history and who seems to be traveling alone. The motor coach itself is a marvel of modern comfort, or at least that's what the brochure promised. High-backed reclining seats with extra legroom, panoramic windows, climate control, and yes, a compact but functional restroom at the rear. For most passengers, that restroom is just a convenience, but for Ethan, who gets anxious about asking for unscheduled stops, it's been a reassuring presence. The coach has been on the road for nearly 2 hours since the last rest area, winding through increasingly remote territory where the views are spectacular but facilities are non-existent. It happens during Jake's commentary about the upcoming scenic overlook. The driver, Hank, whispers something to Jake, who nods and takes the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a small announcement to make," Jake says, his voice carrying that perfect blend of authority and friendliness. "It seems our onboard restroom is experiencing some technical difficulties. Nothing major, but it's out of commission for the remainder of today's journey." He pauses as a murmur ripples through the bus. "Don't worry, we'll be making an unscheduled stop in about 45 minutes at a visitor center. In the meantime, I appreciate your patience and understanding." Most passengers take the news in stride. Mrs. Hernandez from seat 4B makes a joke about her husband's plumbing skills that gets a round of laughter. The college students at the back of the bus are too engrossed in their conversation to care. But Ethan feels a knot forming in his stomach. 45 minutes. He should have used the restroom at the last stop, but he'd been so captivated by the historic building they were touring that he'd forgotten. Now he's regretting that extra bottle of water he drank to stay hydrated in the mountain air. Jake notices Ethan's discomfort almost immediately. After finishing his announcement, he makes his way down the aisle, checking in with passengers, answering questions about the upcoming views. When he reaches Ethan's row, he pauses. "Everything okay?" he asks quietly, leaning in so only Ethan can hear. "Fine," Ethan replies, but his tight smile gives him away. "Just, unfortunate timing with the restroom situation." Jake glances around, then sits in the empty seat beside Ethan. "Look," he says, his voice low and conspiratorial. "There's actually a space about 2 rows back where the seats are arranged differently. It's not exactly private, but it's as good as it gets right now. If you're desperate." He lets the suggestion hang in the air, a playful glint in his eye that makes Ethan wonder if he's being serious or if this is some kind of joke. "You can't be suggesting what I think you're suggesting," Ethan whispers back, feeling heat rise to his cheeks. Is Jake really proposing that he use some corner of the bus as a makeshift restroom? The idea is mortifying, and yet there's something in Jake's expression that doesn't seem to match such a crude suggestion. Jake laughs softly. No, nothing like that. I mean, it's a quiet spot where you could maybe take your mind off things. Sometimes distraction is the best medicine." He pauses, studying Ethan's face. "I could show you if you want. Sometimes on these long stretches, I need a break from being on all the time." There's something in the way Jake says this that makes Ethan realize he's being offered more than just a distraction from physical discomfort. The chemistry that's been building between them over the past 3 days, the lingering glances, the way Jake seems to find reasons to chat with him during stops, how he remembered Ethan's coffee preference this morning, suddenly crystallizes into a moment of possibility. "I don't normally do things like this," Ethan says, surprising himself with his boldness. Jake's smile deepens. "Like what? Have a private conversation with your tour guide? I promise it's not against the rules." but they both know he's talking about something more. The decision feels momentous, though from the outside it would look like nothing, just a passenger and a tour guide moving to different seats for a chat. Okay, Ethan says finally. Lead the way. As they make their way toward the back of the bus, Ethan is acutely aware of the rhythm of the motorcoach, the way it sways gently around curves, the rumble of its engine providing a constant backdrop. Jake walks with the easy confidence of someone who's spent countless hours on moving vehicles, his balance perfect even as the bus navigates a particularly winding stretch of road. The space Jake mentioned is a small area where the regular seating pattern breaks to accommodate the wheel well. There's a slightly wider gap between seats, creating a semi-private nook that's partially shielded from the rest of the passenger's view. It's not much, but in the confined world of the motorcoach, it feels like finding a secret room. See? Not exactly the Ritz, but it's the closest thing to privacy you'll find on this bus, Jake says as they settle into the seats. He's sitting closer to Ethan than necessary, their knees almost touching in the narrow space. So, tell me something I don't know about you, Ethan Parker. The question catches Ethan off guard. What do you want to know? Why this tour? You don't seem like our usual demographic. Most solo travelers your age go for the adventure packages, whitewater rafting, mountain biking. This is more of a scenery and history tour. Ethan hesitates, wondering how much to reveal. There's something about Jake that makes him want to be honest. I needed to see something beautiful, he says finally. My life back home is predictable. Books, work, my apartment. I thought maybe seeing some of these places I've only read about might help me figure some things out. Jake nods, his expression thoughtful. And has it helped you figure things out? I'm not sure yet, Ethan admits. But I'm feeling things I haven't felt in a long time. So that's something. He looks directly at Jake as he says this, allowing the double meaning to hang between them. The bus hits a small bump, and Jake's hand lands on Ethan's knee to steady himself. He doesn't remove it immediately. You know what I think? Jake says, his voice dropping lower. I think sometimes we spend so much time planning and worrying that we miss the chances right in front of us. Is that what this is? A chance? Ethan asks, his heart racing now. Jake's answer is to lean in slightly, his eyes asking a question. Ethan answers by closing the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that's tentative at first, then growing more confident. The world narrows to this moment. The warmth of Jake's mouth, the faint scent of his cologne, the thrill of doing something so unexpected. When they pull apart, Ethan is breathless. I've never kissed anyone on a moving vehicle before, he admits with a small laugh. First time for everything, Jake replies, his hand now intertwined with Ethan's. And for the record, I don't make a habit of this with passengers. There's just something about you that got under my skin from day one. The confession makes Ethan bold. So what happens now, he asks. Jake glances toward the front of the bus, then back at Ethan. Now we have about 30 minutes until that rest stop. We could talk more, get to know each other better. Or, he leaves the alternative unspoken, but his eyes convey his meaning clearly. What follows is a blur of sensation and emotion for Ethan. They kiss again, more deeply this time, Jake's hand cupping his face with surprising tenderness. There's an intoxicating mix of danger and desire in every touch. The knowledge that they're surrounded by other passengers, separated only by the high backs of the seats, and the general distraction of the spectacular views outside. Jake's fingers trace patterns on Ethan's arm, then find their way under the hem of his shirt, warm against his skin. Ethan gasps softly, then worries the sound might have carried. Shoo! Jake whispers against his ear, the sound sending shivers down Ethan's spine. Just feel. Don't think. It's advice Ethan has never been good at following, but in this moment, he surrenders to it. His hands explore Jake's shoulders, the solid strength of his back. They're limited by their surroundings. This is intimacy within constraints, desire expressed through the smallest of gestures. A thumb brushing across a wrist, fingers threading through hair, breath mingling in the small space between them. We should stop, Ethan whispers eventually, though his body protests the suggestion. Someone could see. Jake nods, pressing one last kiss to the corner of Ethan's mouth. You're right, but I don't regret a single second. They sit together for a moment longer, straightening clothes, composing themselves. The reality of what just happened begins to sink in for Ethan. He's had a passionate encounter with his tour guide in the back of a bus full of people. It's so far outside his normal behavior that he almost doesn't recognize himself. And yet, he feels more alive than he has in years. I should get back to my duties, Jake says reluctantly. People will wonder where I've disappeared to. Of course, Ethan agrees, though he doesn't want this bubble to burst. What about after the tour ends? Tomorrow's the last day. Jake's smile is warm with possibility. I have 3 days off after this group. No plans yet. He squeezes Ethan's hand once more before standing. Think about it. No pressure. As Jake makes his way back to the front of the bus, resuming his role as the knowledgeable guide, Ethan remains in the back, his mind and heart racing. He watches as Jake picks up the microphone, pointing out a particularly stunning mountain peak to the group. No one would guess that moments ago, those same hands were exploring Ethan's body with such intensity. The announcement about the upcoming rest stop brings Ethan back to reality. He realizes with a start that he's completely forgotten about his urgent need for the restroom. Jake's distraction technique had worked perfectly. As the passengers begin gathering their belongings in anticipation of the stop, Ethan makes his way back to his original seat, feeling the weight of curious glances from a few passengers. Mrs. Hernandez gives him a knowing smile that makes him wonder if their secluded spot wasn't quite as private as they'd thought. The college students at the back are still in their own world, but one of them, a girl with bright blue hair, winks at him as he passes. The rest of the journey takes on a dreamlike quality for Ethan. The scheduled stop comes and goes. The magnificent scenery continues to unfold outside the windows. Jake resumes his commentary, professional and engaging as ever, though Ethan catches the occasional glance in his direction, a private message in each look. As the day draws to a close and the motorcoach pulls into the hotel where they'll spend their final night of the tour, Ethan finds himself lingering as the other passengers disembark. Jake is at the door, thanking each person, reminding them of the morning departure time. When Ethan finally reaches him, their hands touch as Jake returns his day pack. Room 217. Jake murmurs, so quietly that even someone standing beside them wouldn't hear. After dinner, if you want. No expectations. Ethan nods, unable to trust his voice. He steps off the bus into the cool evening air, his mind already made up though he'll spend the next few hours pretending to deliberate. Dinner is a blur. Ethan sits with some of the other solo travelers, making conversation on autopilot while his thoughts are elsewhere. Jake is at a separate table with the driver, maintaining professional distance. Only once do their eyes meet across the room, a moment of connection that sends heat coursing through Ethan's body. At precisely 9:30, Ethan finds himself standing outside room 217, his heart pounding. He's changed clothes 3 times, settled on casual but nice jeans and a button-down shirt that a former boyfriend once said brought out the color of his eyes. He knocks before he can lose his nerve. Jake opens the door immediately, as if he's been waiting just on the other side. He's changed too, dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt that highlights the definition in his arms. You came, he says, his voice warm with pleasure. Did you think I wouldn't? Ethan asks, stepping inside as Jake closes the door behind him. I hoped you would, but I meant what I said about no expectations. Jake gestures to a small sitting area in the corner of the standard hotel room. Wine? The hotel gift shop had a surprisingly decent selection. They talk for hours, the wine loosening their tongues, learning about each other in ways that wouldn't be possible in the confined, public space of the motorcoach. Jake shares stories of the strangest tour groups he's led, including one where an elderly couple renewed their vows at every scenic overlook. Ethan talks about his love of books, his small apartment filled with more volumes than furniture, his dream of writing a novel someday. So what happens after tomorrow? Ethan finally asks, the question that's been hovering between them all evening. Tomorrow the tour ends. Passengers will disperse to airports and train stations, returning to their regular lives. Jake sets down his wine glass, his expression serious for the first time. That depends on you. I live in Denver when I'm not on the road. You're in Chicago, right? Ethan nods. That's not exactly next door, but it's not impossible either. Are you suggesting we try to have some kind of relationship, based on one day of whatever this is? Ethan asks, not dismissive but genuinely curious. Jake laughs softly. When you put it that way, it sounds crazy. But I've learned to trust my instincts about people, and everything about you feels right to me. He reaches for Ethan's hand. I'm not asking for promises, just openness to possibilities. Ethan thinks about his life back in Chicago, the routine he was so desperate to escape that he booked this tour. The emptiness of his apartment despite all the books filling its shelves. The loneliness he's grown so accustomed to that he barely notices it anymore. And then he looks at Jake, with his easy smile and kind eyes, offering not certainty, but possibility. I think I can manage that, Ethan says, squeezing Jake's hand. Openness to possibilities. What follows is a night of discovery, of learning each other's bodies with the same curiosity and attention they've brought to learning each other's stories. There's none of the constraint they faced on the Motorcoach. Here they have privacy, space, time. They take full advantage of all three. Morning comes too quickly. They've slept little, reluctant to waste precious hours in unconsciousness. Ethan watches the sunrise from Jake's bed, the light painting the mountains outside the window in shades of pink and gold. It's their last day together, at least for now. The final day of the tour has a bittersweet quality for Ethan. The group visits one last spectacular viewpoint, takes one final guided walk along a scenic trail. Jake is the consummate professional, giving no indication to the other passengers that anything has changed. But Ethan catches the private glances, the subtle touches as Jake helps him over a rocky section of the path, fingers lingering just a moment longer than necessary. As the Motorcoach makes its final approach to the airport where most passengers will depart, Jake takes the microphone one last time. He thanks everyone for joining the tour, expresses hope that they've created lasting memories, and reminds them to check their seats for personal belongings. Standard end-of-tour comments, delivered with Jake's characteristic charm. But then he adds something that makes Ethan's heart skip. Someone wise once told me that the best journeys are the ones that change us in ways we didn't expect when we set out. I hope each of you found something on this tour that you weren't looking for, something that surprised you, challenged you, or maybe even transformed you a little. His eyes meet Ethan's briefly, a world of meaning in that glance. The goodbyes at the airport are chaotic, passengers gathering luggage, exchanging contact information, making last-minute restroom stops before flights. In the confusion, Jake pulls Ethan aside behind a pillar. My next tour starts in 2 weeks, he says. I could fly to Chicago for a few days before that, if you wanted. Ethan doesn't hesitate. I want. Very much. They exchange phone numbers, though they've already added each other on social media during the night. One last kiss, quick but full of promise, and then Jake has to return to the Motorcoach to help the remaining passengers who are continuing to the downtown hotel. As Ethan watches the bus pull away, he can't help but smile at the irony. Who would have thought that a malfunctioning restroom would lead to this unexpected connection? That in seeking some privacy on a crowded bus, he would find something he wasn't even looking for? His phone buzzes with a text. It's Jake. Just remembered I never actually fixed that restroom. Best maintenance failure of my career. Ethan laughs out loud, drawing curious glances from nearby travelers. He types back, remind me to send a thank you note to the manufacturer. 2 weeks later, when Jake steps off the plane in Chicago, Ethan is waiting. They have 4 days together. 4 days to explore this connection outside the bubble of the tour, to see if what sparked on a scenic mountain road can flourish in the reality of everyday life. Spoiler alert, it can. It does. And every year on the anniversary of their first kiss, they take a day trip somewhere beautiful. They always choose to travel by bus, and they always sit 2 rows from the back, where the seats are arranged just a little differently, creating a space that's not exactly private, but private enough. Total _char_count, 18,632.